till I can actually work out of my own studio. I thought, well, maybe I made the mistake of my life to come here to California, because I was very well established in Munich and had a lot of clients there. But anyway, so it worked out, and then after 2 years or so, it really caught on, and then I was doing a lot of expansion with recording equipment, bought the newest digital recorders, and then finally in 97, I realized that this is getting way too small.
Right.
So
how do you begin your career as an entrepreneur? Like, what made you want to do this?
Well, that was actually the beginning. I mean, back then in Munich, it was sort of the same way. I started first with teaching in guitar and bass, and I had a ton of students, like 60, 70 students a week. And then the same thing with the studio, it caught on little by little, and the same thing repeated here in Bakersfield, So slowly but surely it caught on, and if you're asking about entrepreneur, I really don't know how to give any great suggestions for that, because if you want to work in a certain field, you just have to be persistent and keep trying and trying, and know ways to advertise which work. Mm-hmm. To give you an example, when I was starting here in Bakersfield, I thought, well, if I can just get together like 20 guitar students, that would pay already my mortgage,
Right.
Well, I took out a radio ad on a local station and paid, I think, $500 for that. That was a lot of money for me back then.
So this is how you market yourself at the time?
Yes, but that wasn't very successful because I got exactly one phone call.
Mm.
So, but anyway, just advertising, speaking to musicians and so forth, and that was slowly but surely catching on.
So what drew you to this particular field, and what inspired you to start your own music business after working as an audio engineer? Or have you ever worked as an audio engineer before?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, while I was studying guitar at the music conservatory, I already got so many guitar students that I could make a living from that.
Right.
So in other words, I was actually very lucky that I could make a living from age 18 on with my hobby,
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't happen so often, that you can work with what you love to do. And then same thing with audio engineering, it just like developed slowly but surely,
Mm-hmm.
So I started recording there, and then, like I said, this is the equipment I brought over from Germany, and that's how I started here. And do you have what was your other question on that?
So what inspired you to start your own music business after working as an audio engineer?
Well, it's maybe the love for certain types of music.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I truly listen to just about anything. I mean, from hip hop to some classical music. Classical guitar, and so I thought, well, if I can work in that field, that would be perfect for me, and it fortunately worked all this time, and I don't say that lightly, because you have to put a lot of effort in that,
Right.
And for example, as a musician playing in groups here in Bakersfield, I could never survive, because the pay is just not very high,
It seems more local here than somewhere place like in LA, where you can say, oh yeah, I play local, but LA is LA,
Yeah. On that one, I can also tell you a little bit inside information that, like, there are many Mexican bands here in town, and we had a lot of them here for recording, and when they play for a wedding or quinceañera or baptismo, they get paid very well. So I know of a lot of musicians here in Bakersfield which play that kind of music, and they only work on the weekend. That's all they do. Yeah,
that's crazy. See, I had an uncle before too that used to do that.
Yes.
They used to pay him way more than what his job was.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so then it slowly but surely caught on, and then we were able to manage to buy this place here, and then it still cost a fortune to actually have this studio here custom built. Mm-hmm. You know, that this is more expensive than it looks like, right, because it's all double walls, acoustic treatment, and so forth. So, but we moved in here in '98, and here ever since, and I can say that still it's most interesting for me because I can work with music, and many times I have a group coming in which does some music which maybe I normally wouldn't have listened to. But then when you hear it, then you think, wow, that's actually really cool. I like a lot of the more alternative groups or metal groups which came through here. And so that was my luck, so to speak, that I was able to slide into a profession where I can actually work with music I enjoy 99% of the time.
Right. You know? So what is a big challenge you find in this industry then?
Big challenge is, without any question, to keep up with the technical stuff.
Right.
You know, this desk here with this computer, this is $45,000 easily, you know. And when you look at this, you don't think it's that expensive, you know, but it's a
whole console.
It's I think I can say that I was fortunate, and like I said, keeping up with the technical equipment. So slowly but surely, 25 years ago, digital recording started.
Right.
And then at some point it was inevitable that I have to switch over to new recording system, you know. System. And then you have a gigantic chunk of money you have to come up with to actually be able to do this, you know. And that was back then ADAT multi-track recorders, which still were going on tape, but it was all digital. So that was miraculous back then. That was before you could record on a computer. And then we recorded on that for 10 years. And then another hurdle. It was evident that I have to switch over to Pro Tools, computer-based recording, recording onto a hard drive, you know. And then I was trying to look around, and I realized, well, having a decent Pro Tools setup for this studio, that's going to cost $40,000-$50,000. And I thought, oh my God, how am I going to do that? You know. So, but we finally got that worked out. So we have this setup since 2012, 2013. Of course, constantly upgrading, new computer, host computer, and all that. You know. So that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges. And then the other challenge, I think, is advertisement. Because recording, you know, I don't think you can advertise that with radio commercials like toothpaste. You know, you can sell to just about anybody. Right. But recording is a little bit more difficult. That goes a lot by word of mouth, you know. So, yeah, but I can say so far, so good, you know. And I was also, for 18 years, actually doing live sound. What that means is we set up the sound system for groups when they perform. And so I was doing for 18 years nothing but quinceañeras, baptismos, and so forth, and was working with all kinds of Mexican groups, which I very much enjoyed, I have to say.
Okay.
There were like some fantastic musicians I met, and they get paid well because in the Hispanic community they just appreciate, good music. Yeah.
So what unique challenges or opportunities do you see in the music industry, given your dual role both as a business owner and an audio engineer?
And musician. I should say. Yeah, the big challenges, I think, are to keep up with the technical changes. And there's also now new procedures of recording. For example, normally recording means there's a group coming in and you tell them, okay, no, play it, and if you don't get it right, go back in again and do it over. But nowadays there's also a lot of music which is based on making beats, making beats and loops, like for hip hop or rap or a lot of R&B. These are loops which are created, and I can create loops here with samples and drum beats and so forth. So this is something which you have to educate yourself with.
Correct.
Unless you play keyboard, which I don't play keyboard, only guitar and bass. So there are also certain trends in the way music is supposed to be mixed, like for, let's say, norteño music as well as for country music, the vocals a little bit more out front, and in R&B it's probably vocals a little bit lower in volume and more bass heavy. So there are trends which are changing. Nowadays, norteño groups want to have their music mixed different than 5 years ago. So, and these are all changes which are very interesting to me, but you have to update yourself on the technical stuff, yeah. So, another thing we do here, for just about 20 years, I do training courses for audio engineering. So I have students coming in, sometimes even from as far as Fresno, and they take courses where they learn systematically every step of recording, which is, of course, not just working with Pro Tools, but also like mic setup. And besides the technical aspect, we also teach music production. How do you do this when you work with a group which gets hired for a singer which wants to record an album? So there are certain things you need to know about music to do this right, and that's what we do.
So how has your experience as an audio engineer helped you develop the skills necessary to be a successful entrepreneur?
Number one, back then in Germany, I went to school for it, studied audio engineering, and of course, as years, or I should say in my case, decades go by, you have to really update yourself. What we can do nowadays with Pro Tools and all these tools which work with Pro Tools, like Melodyne, for example. You can fix notes and correct stuff which you could never fix in the past. A guy sings a wrong note. Well, I can pull this thing up.
Auto pitch. Okay.
In a way that you cannot tell later.
Right.
So back then in the 50s, when Elvis was recording, all his musicians had to play with him in real time, onto tape. So nowadays you can do this all separate. I can have a guitar player come in next week which does guitar solos on songs, but back then they all had to do it in the same time, and it was all mixed back then